So back in the day, post offices used to be a big deal, and I'll show you why. It'll become fairly evident why. Well, first of all, the reason was there were not just vehicles for sending letters. Sometimes they would have bank accounts. If you wanted to get anything done, you would pretty much, that dealt with the government, you would pretty much have to go in and deal with the post office. One of the things that's interesting about this post office is all of the different stamps from all over the world. And a couple of things that struck me were, number one, just how much Frederick Engels is mentioned, Engels, I believe. He's all over the world and all over the world stamps. Another interesting thing that struck me was just the fact that you're looking at, right now you're looking at Cameroon, but there's a Soviet-Russian module here. And what's interesting is that it doesn't actually have any of the wrestlers' stamps. It has all the other sports, but not wrestlers. I haven't actually looked at the Iranian ones. So that's interesting. Now, of course, with respect to the Russians, you don't know if somebody just happened to hold on to it because they liked it so much and it was part of the collection, or if it just wasn't that big of a deal back in the 1930s. And these stamps do go back quite far. One of the reasons, of course, because the post offices were put into place, in Indonesia at least, probably around the 1700s. So it's not uncommon to still have stamps from the 1906, for example, and so on and so forth. What's interesting here is that you might not notice the names. A lot of the countries' names have changed. This one is kind of interesting. Huh. And you can see a lot of the history here. You can see what countries respect simply by the stamps they issue. Indonesia is really interesting because they've got a lot of different stamps for a lot of different, just activities. One of them, they even have stamps for the disabled. Let me see if I can find that here. Actually, I don't think it's on this particular module. I think I might have skipped it somewhere else. But long story short, if you're looking for history, a post office might be the first place to visit when you visit another country. One of the things that really just sort of strikes you is just how much handiwork had to go into all of these different, all these different containers. Hello, abakaba. Sama. So you've got, of course, you've got the weighing scales. And let me try to show you if I can find it again. Hello. If I can find it, I want to show you just the letters. I believe it might be this way. It's a little bit of a confusing layout, but here it is. So you'll notice a lot of different, what appear to be manuscripts, and this one actually is. But let me show you what a letter used to look like back in the day when the Sultan would say, talk to a king. This, I believe, this is a letter. And it wasn't just, it wasn't just the Indonesians that had a flair for the artistic. Let me show you King James. And again, each region had different styles. So the act of writing a letter was a big deal. You really put some effort into it. And another thing you can see here, just based on the selection here, is when these different regions were broken up, you had a lot of people that were simply afraid of, say, the French, and so they partnered with the British, and vice versa. So you can see how important propaganda is. If you can make your opponent look terrible, a lot of times, you'll end up in a position where you will be able to exert diplomacy perhaps a little bit more easily. So we talk about fake news in the United States now and all over the world. There's a reason for that, especially now that we have so much military spending all over the world. And you can see why in the past diplomacy was a little bit more feasible, simply because, a lot of times, if you are, for example, Sir Stanford Raffles, you come in to Java and you actually publish a book in English of the history of Java. No one's done that before. And so you get to be the authority on that section's history, and at least in the English language. And you can see how that would be both exciting and also interesting, right? Because is it really true that he was able to get all of Java's history in one book or a collection of books? And so you go back and forth, and the more you study, the more you realize that you're going to have to sort of go back into different archives in order to really figure out what was going on, and that just takes a whole lifetime. And so all we can really do when we're looking back on history is try to get just an overall sense about what was happening, the people who were respected, and the authors who were respected. Of course, Tolstoy and Pushkin will also be featured on many stamps. Interestingly, Pushkin more than Tolstoy. That's it.